You are managing a large software development project that involves multiple outsourced components. Midway through the project, a significant change in project requirements necessitates altering a key component of the software, which is currently being developed by an external supplier. Okay, as a project manager, what is the most appropriate action to manage this situation? So we are working with many vendors. We have a change in requirement from our stakeholders. The impacted component seems to be getting developed by a given vendor. Now I am a project manager. Stakeholder want me to change something, but I need to work with a vendor so that vendor incorporate that particular change. That's the situation I am in. So how do I work with that vendor, or what do I do in this particular situation? We need to find it out based on our four options. Let's see option A. Direct the supplier to make the necessary changes to their components. It's a possibility, but there is also a possibility if I direct them, they may not listen to me, especially if we have given a fixed price contract to that particular supplier or a vendor. If we have given a time and material, then probably it will work, yeah, because we just tell him and they probably will keep doing it because anyway we are going to pay for the change in scope. If I get a better option which takes care of contract and the agreement between two of us, that can help me in better finding out how to work with the vendor rather than I directly take an approach that I will tell the vendor and they will change it. Let's see option B. Follow the contract change control process to align the changes needed. Looks like a great idea. So we understand with each contract, with each vendor, inside the contract, we should have a clarity about how to manage the changes, and various definition of change and the implication of change, cost, timeline are defined there. So if I am a project manager and I'm getting this request from my stakeholder and I figure it out that this is impacting my vendor's component, the next thing I will do is open up the contract with that particular vendor, look at the change control mechanism which we have identified in that contract, and I ensure according to that I initiate my process, or according to that I also do evaluation of how can we get our stakeholder need met by working with the vendor in this particular situation. So option B looks great to me. Let's see other option. Option C, continue with the original scope as planned and accommodate the project changes internally. So it is directly making me act, not exploring the vendor and change process. There is a possibility after learning the contract change control, I may decide it might be very expensive and complicated to work with the vendor. Better we do it internally. There is a possibility, but I don't know. There is also a possibility that it can easily get done by the vendor. It might be an easy thing, and if we have a provisioning in our contract which takes care of it. So directly acting and saying that, okay, let's not disturb the vendor contract. Whatever changes are done, we will do it after we receive the work from the vendor. A lot of assumptions are getting added in case if I select the option C. So definitely not defined, or we don't have a sufficient information to say that we want to do the incremental work in our internal team rather than getting done it from the vendor. We should work with the vendor. Option D, tell your project stakeholder that the change cannot be accommodated since the work is outsourced. Definitely not a good option. Yeah, you need to understand. Yeah, the outsourcing or not outsourcing is not the reason of accepting or rejecting the change. It should be based on the overall merits of the change. And we need to look for new ideas. I can't just reject the idea which is coming from the stakeholders for the new requirement. So option D is also not coming well here. So I follow the change control process. That's something which is very well defined. The contract change control process, it should be integrated, my integrated change control process as well. And based on what we evaluate and we see the impact, we decide what should we do in this particular situation. So we go with option B. This particular question is mapped to the process domain task 10 and 11. 10 because it is focusing on managing project changes. 11 because it is focusing on manage the procurement part of it, plan and manage procurement, because we are managing the procurement execution on the ongoing basis. So that's why it is also mapped to a question, the task number 11. Overall topics, it's all about change control, integrated change control for our own project, and contract change control to take care of changes in a given contract.